What should be our response to that which is impossible when Yah says it's possible? Hi, this is Barry Phillips of 10-Minute Torah, day 2 of Vayera, and we are yet in Bereshit or Genesis chapter number 18. Let's continue down now in verse number 9. It says, and they said to him, the messengers said to Abraham, where is Sarah, your wife? Notice that they're clarifying your wife here. He said, see, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life. And see, Sarah, your wife, is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women. She was post-menopausal. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I've grown old, shall I too have pleasure in my master being old too? Yahweh said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I have a child since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? That's the question. What is impossible with men is still possible with Yah. We have to answer that question. Is there anything that is too hard for him? Yeshua used the imagery. He's saying, if you're able to have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can speak to this mountain and it will be plucked up and cast into the sea. And I know that there are a lot of hyper faith, let's use that term, hyper faith preachers who preach that verse consistently, but I've never known any of them to speak to a mountain and it get plucked up and be thrown anywhere. Obviously, Yeshua was using a different mindset here. If you can speak with the word of truth, if you can have a small amount of faith, then what has been revealed here on this mountain, Mount Sion, it can go into the sea of humanity. Another way of looking at it. Nevertheless, Abraham is being told here, your wife is going to have a child. This is not news to him. Back over in chapter 17, Yahweh says to Abraham in verse 15 and following, as for Sarah your wife, or Sarai your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her and also give you a son by her. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations, sovereigns of peoples are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed. He laughed before she laughed, and said in his heart, is a child born to a man who is 100 years old, or is Sarah who is 90 years old to bear a child? And so Abraham says to Elohim, oh, let Ishmael live before you. After all, he's already here. That's much easier. It's much more possible. And Yah says to him, no. I read that this a few days ago again, and it's just struck me how emphatic that no must have been. No. No. He says, Sarah, your wife, is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Yitzhak, and I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. Now, he said, I'll bless Ishmael, but no, it's Yitzhak, the heir that I have promised to you all along for years is through Sarah. The more I read about this ancient couple, the more intrigued I am about the nature of their relationship and how that they got along or maybe didn't get along, or why they did as they did. And it is difficult to put our current modern perceptions on this ancient culture of understanding in marital relationship. It's not the same. Married couples today are different than they were 100 years ago or a few hundred years ago. Just the nature of relationships. Yes, romance has long been a part of mankind and, courtship and all of those types of things that fairy tales are written about in movie plots. But real life, not every married couple were deeply in love. And they learned to function together as a team and to create an existence and survive. Where we're looking for conveniences, previous generations, they were looking for just survival. And we don't understand that in our concept of what marriage is in our day. And so we have this ancient couple. And between the two of them, they are childless. And yet Yah is saying, it's not Hagar, it's not Ishmael, it's not any other route, it's you two. And that's not to say that, that they immediately started holding hands and kissing and getting all lovey-dovey and excited. It could be that they had to rebuild a relationship that may have been strained. It could have had issues that were thought insurmountable. But when Yah says it's possible, it's not only possible, it is going to be done. When he rhetorically asks, is there anything that's too hard for me? It doesn't mean then that the choosing to agree with him, yes, it's possible with you. If something is possible, it doesn't mean that it's going to be smooth necessarily. And so when Yah says, this is what's going to be done, it's out of your reach, it's out of your capability in the natural. But I'm going to supernaturally intervene and create circumstances, and I'm going to cause things to come into reality that are not. But again, he's the one who speaks of things that are not as though they are. So whatever situation you may find yourself in currently, where it's a stone wall in front of you, there is no way through, there is no answer, there is no resolve, ask yourself the question, is there anything that is too hard for him? And the obvious answer is no, because our Heavenly Father specializes in finding us at our extremity and showing up there with the answer. We sing the song Waymaker. Waymaker, miracle worker. And that's who he is. That's who our Heavenly Father is. And the other thing that we need to understand today is that we are in covenant relationship with him. We're not just someone Yah knows. He knows everybody. There's no one that he doesn't know, and know to the nth degree. But he not only knows us, he is in covenant relationship with us. And that means that he is committed to us more than we can possibly understand. He's committed to seeing his will and his way and his ultimate destiny and desire for us brought into reality. And for that to happen, there are times he has to shock us, getting us into the vein of where we can agree with him, move with him, and function with him to bring his desire into reality. Now, as I read this, I'm thinking that Sarah may have looked over at her husband and say, did you know about this? Maybe he's going to say, well, babe, I meant to talk to you about that. Yeah, didn't I say anything about this before? Well, I've been in pain since that circumcision and all the healing process. I thought I'd tell you a little later. Yah shows up to make sure that both participants in this miraculous event were aware of what was getting ready to take place. Yah wants you on board. He wants those that are involved with you to be on board. He wants to team together to make the impossible not only possible, but a reality. be partner with him, and I'll see you again tomorrow. To then, shalom.